Yours. Nice. Thank you guys for coming. I'm Waylon Lank, and this is my little play, Coyote Hunts the Sun. What's the story? The story is that I've been working on this play for more than a year now, and this is the culmination of its present version. I've been brainstorming and brainstorming. The idea came to me because I'm kind of native and from Northwest California. So I'm driving across the country to come to school in New York. And I'm thinking, gosh, this reminds me of a story where a coyote does exactly the same thing. I should write a play. And so this is that. I was writing on it, and I was realizing now's the time for it to be a thing in front of people. Yeah, so it's a thing in front of people now. Afterwards, after this thing in front of people, we're going to have a talk back because, like I say, it's still a work in progress. It still needs your input, the audience's input on this. Is my hat back there? I feel like I left my hat back there. I feel like it's on the truck. Gosh, I'll be right back.
It's on the carts, right?
Oh, dog. No, it's not. Oh, where did I put it? Anyways, I'm not nervous at all. It's closing for us. It's going to be awesome. So, what are the things? Oh, the other thing that I have to say is that this is the flagship piece of the Native Arts Forum at Wampawag. Wampawag being the Setonket name for this place. The Setonkets being the original caretakers of Stony Brook. Wampawag is their name for this village. And Native Arts Forum, Sonia Kirchner, who is another one of the grad students, the other Native grad student here, she and I are putting together this thing where we bring in Native artists to showcase their works. And this is going to be the flagship thing for that. And I'm more than 100% positive that's all I had to say. So without further ado, thank you. And this is Coyote Hunts the Sun.
All right, class, let's get started. So today we're going to continue learning about Native American history. But to start things off a little differently, I'm going to tell you guys a Karuk legend. It's called Coyote and the Sun. You see, Coyote and his 5 children lived in a place where it rained and snowed constantly, till one day the sun came out. So Coyote sent his children up into the mountains to gather some food, some strawberries and some oats. But by the time they reached the top of the mountain, a spring snowstorm hit. And unfortunately, only 3 returned to Coyote. Now, Coyote was furious. He blamed the sun for tricking him and believing that it was safe enough to have his children go up into the mountains and return safely with food. So, he spent the night sharpening his knives. And he waited for the sun to reappear the next morning to exact his revenge for his lost children. So when the sun reappeared, he marked its location on a ridge a little far off and set out for it. But by the time he reached that ridge, night had fallen. Not deterred, not discouraged, he waited till the next morning for the sun to make its reappearance. The next day, he saw the sun behind a ridge even farther off. He followed it again. Now this happened for a while. He crossed the continent until he reached the Atlantic Ocean. Now you see, there are 2 endings to this story. One, where he kills the sun, gets revenge for his lost children, and the other, where he realizes he's reached the Atlantic Ocean and he can go no further.
Grant! Where's Fred and Lee?
I don't know. We came to a fork in the trail and those 2 went up the hill and I just kept going straight.
Why didn't you stick together? I thought I told you to stick together.
I said we should, but they wanted to go up the hill to find strawberries, and I told them there were only strawberries on the left fork, but they wouldn't listen.
What fork? Where did you guys split up?
You know, past the water tower, how you go past the big rocks and then There's a fork up there, and if you go left, you can get onto the Forest Service roads. They went right.
You wait here.
Now, when we take a closer look at Coyote and the Sun, you see a period of time of constant rain and snow. And then finally, the sun comes up. Hope, a chance for food. Now, you see, that's how the Americans were perceived by the Indians. And just as Coyote was tricked by the sun, so were the Indians by the Americans. You see, instead of giving them hope, a new way of life, new technology, bettering themselves, they stripped them of their culture, put their children in boarding schools, and enslaved them. Now you can see the boarding schools I mentioned. You see this picture right here? This is the picture when the students are first enrolled. A dark image. The children in their native attire, their long hair. Before. After. Their hair's cut. They're stripped of their native attire, put in suits. And another photo is taken with a lighter image to make them look whiter. Before, after, uncivilized, civilized. Even before that, for the children who were lucky enough not to be in boarding school, they were put as slaves. You see, the Act for the Protection Government of Indians in 1850 was an act passed by the California government to legalize slavery for Indian children. You see, children were able to be used as indentured servants from a young age to the age of majority, which was 15 for women and 18 for men, but then later amended to 35 for women and 40 for men. You see, their children were taken from them, used as slaves, put in boarding schools, assimilated to American culture, and then they would return, some of them, to their native villages as strangers. You see, they were oppressed by the American government. They were stripped of their culture and forced to become Americanized, become white. They were forced to leave their native culture behind.
Well then, I'm glad you came. When they come, we'll eat. Please don't go. We need you here. We want you to be our guest for dinner.
Who's we?
Everyone.
What are we eating?
It's better when it's a surprise. Please don't go.
I have to go find the sun.
The sun?
Oh,
The sun will come in the morning. Wait here a while with me.
come on. Why won't you tell me what's for dinner?
It's a surprise.
It smells good.
It is.
What is it?
We have to wait for them.
But what if I'm allergic?
You're
How do you know? You're not my doctor.
If I let you try, just a little bit, you have to promise not to tell them.
Okay. What is it?
Promise.
Oh.
Okay. You know those howlers up on the ridges at dawn and dusk?
Mm-hmm. Oh. You got one?
Are you allergic?
No, but it's kind of weird.
Only at first.
Is it good?
Really good. First I trapped him. Then I brought him home and skinned him. And I slowly sliced his tendons and gently peeled the meat from his bones. And I threw it into a great big frying pan with vegetables and mushrooms and spices. And then I rolled out a pie crust. Now, while his meat was stewing in the oven preheating, I cut out his heart to put into the pie. And then he died.
Wow.
I know. We'll have it for dessert with some ice
Do
cream.
you think maybe I could have a slice right now?
Well, silly, because then they'll all know. But if you come back into the kitchen, I'll let you taste the stew.
Okay.
Where was I? Right. dance. You see, the ghost dance was the Native Americans' direct reaction to the Americans' oppression. You see, it started with Wovoka, a southern Coyote Indian. He received a premonition about the ghost dance during a solar eclipse. And in this premonition, he saw the second coming of Christ, along with all of their native ancestors and the lost children. This ghost dance was said, when performed, to restore the native land to the way it was before the Americans came in. Wovoka wanted to use this dance to empower his people. So, it spread to Nevada, to Northern California, where it met the Karuk Indians. Now, they didn't receive it very well. However, it did reach South Dakota, where it met the Sioux tribe. Now, they were a very militant tribe. Their leader, Sitting Bull, Mr. Laughing Dog? Mr. Laughing Dog, yes, thank you. Can you bring up the picture of Sitting Bull for me? Yes. Sitting Bull was the Sioux tribe's leader. Now, you may know him as the guy who killed General Custer. Now, this militant leader combined with the militant group and the ghost dance, which was different from any other kind of dance the Indians have ever done. It was faster, and they moved in a motion that mimicked the sun's orbit. Now, it was seen as a very aggressive dance, especially when combined with their aggressive past. Now, the ghost dance was banned in 1890, but Sitting Bull was an avid supporter of this dance. Now, his continued ceremonies led to his arrest. Now, we have a picture of the Indian tribal police standing outside of Sitting Bull's home. Now, at first, Sitting Bull complied, agreed, like, okay, I understand, I know my past. You're coming here to arrest me. But he was the leader of the Sioux tribe, so this arrest created some suspicion. So, some Sitting Bull supporters came over, and these supporters just happened to be armed. So, Sitting Bull, seeing the following he had, the armed following he had at that, realized he didn't want to be arrested any longer. So, shooting ensued. You see, the Indian tribal police shot at the Sitting Bull supporters, and the Sitting Bull supporters shot at the Indian tribal police, and Sitting Bull was the first to be killed. But Sitting Bull's death wasn't the death of the ghost dance. No, Bigfoot took it over. We have a picture of Bigfoot. Now, Bigfoot took it over, but the ghost dance had its last run during the massacre at Wounded Knee. You see, the Americans were starting to get very worried about the ghost dance. It had a very revolutionary, very militant overtone, and it scared them. They were scared of the implications that would follow from this ghost dance. So they sent in the 7th Cavalry to tell the Indians to cease and desist, no more ghost dance. And when they resisted, they tried a different tactic. They asked them to hand over their weapons. Some complied. The majority of them complied. And others concealed their weapons under thick blankets. One in particular who refused to hand over his weapon was Black Fox. He actually got into a tussle with an American soldier over the possession of his gun until an Indian shaman picked up some sand and threw it at an American soldier. Now this was a signal for attack.
Oh, shit.
Excuse me? Can you bring up the picture of the Indian shaman for me, please? Thank you. Now, this was a signal for attack. So the Americans began to shoot and the massacre erupted. The Indians were at a clear disadvantage because the majority of them already sacrificed their weapons. I have 2 eyewitness accounts from the massacre. One is from Philip F. Wells. He was an American interpreter at the time. He says, by the time a general fight was raging between the soldiers and the Indians, Troop K was drawn up between the tents of the women and children and the main body of the Indians who had been summoned to hand over their arms. The Indians began firing into Troop K to gain canyon of Wounded Knee Creek. In doing so, they exposed their own women and children to their own fire. Captain Wallace was killed at the time while standing in front of his own troops. A bullet striking him in the forehead plowed away the top of his head. I started to pull off my own nose, which hung off by its skin. But Lieutenant Guy Preston shouted, "My God, man, don't do that. That can be saved." The second account I have is from an Indian survivor, Dewey Beard. He says, I was badly wounded and pretty weak too. While I was lying on my back, I looked down the ravine and saw a lot of women and children coming up crying. And when I saw these women and little boys and girls coming up, I also saw soldiers on either side of the ravine shooting at every single one of them until they were dead. Now, this massacre broke the fighting spirits of the Indians west of the Mississippi River, just as wanted to buy up as much land east of the
What are
Mississippi
you in
River
for?
and work our way forward.
Yeah.
Accumulating as much
So
land
whose
as
story
possible.
you telling?
But most of this
What?
land was
Why are
owned
you
by
here?
the Indians. The two tribes in particular were the Fox and Sauk
I'm here
tribes.
because I lost control of
Now,
my
they
story.
were born and raised on this land.
No.
They had cultivated corn. They had raised
why
their
did you come
children,
here?
had taught them the ways of
I got
this land.
business east.
So when the Americans
So
came
that's
in
your story.
and wanted to purchase
Are you
it,
telling it
they were
or someone
hesitant.
else?
One, they didn't agree
You
on
lost
the
me,
price
Chief.
until
I'm
they figured that
headed east to
Americans
kill
were
my
trying to
son.
swindle
There's no
them
story, just
out of
murder
the
for
amount of
murder.
land they really
I know
wanted
the
to
feeling.
buy.
So heading
the
east to
Americans
kill the
drew
son
up a
is your
treaty,
story.
treaty of
Or does it belong to someone
Now
else?
this treaty told
My
the
mind,
Indians
yeah, I
that they
mean,
were able to
I'm me in
stay
it.
in the
Who else is
land
square with me?
until
Sure you
American
never heard of
settlers
it
actually wanted
What?
to
Parents
move in.
revenging their
Some
kids.
complied,
Yeah, all the
but
time.
Uh-huh.
others
Whose story you
stayed,
telling?
and they
Mine.
stayed under the direction
How many
of
times are you
Black
going to do this?
Now,
Because I got a big day tomorrow and I have to sleep.
into
I just want you to know that
You say whose and I say mine, and you say whose and I say mine. Just give me 5 minutes silence.
Americans, Black Hawks.
I just want you to know that
Shut up!
my people got removed across the Mississippi.
Sucks to be a plains Indian.
Well, St. Lawrence River originally. Listen to me, this is a part.
What? The preaching of a washed up Indian activist? So what? You got yourself martyred at the BIA or wounded me or Alcatraz. What good did it do you?
Fighting back keeps our stories our own. And I was at any of those places.
What is it with you and your fixation on stories?
Because mine got taken. I fought to bring my people home. And now the Americans own me and my
So
story.
what good did fighting do you?
We could hardly plant on the other side of the river. We needed our own village back.
And now they're pumping gas on some Okie Rex.
Kansas, actually, and I had to try something.
You lost. You lost, Chief. And I don't need to learn from your mistakes because I'm not making up. I'm gonna win.
And I want you to win. I'm on your side. Please let me help you.
You'll never guess how I got out of that. Go ahead, try it. I'm not going to tell you. This is a secret. If I tell you how I got out, if I told you the trick, then you'd all know. And I wouldn't be able to play that trick again. But maybe you can guess how one lucky time Meshkia Kid got out. You didn't. You couldn't help but stay stuck. It was a trick question. But I did, and once I finished getting out, hold this, don't steal the weed. Once I finished getting out, I stole one of the prison guard cars, and I hauled ass to the border, and pretty soon they were all after me. The prison guards, and the state troopers, and the county troopers, local city cops, the FBI were after me, CIA, NSA, Interpol even. See, there was the border guards, border patrolmen. They're not even real cops anyways, they're just picks with guns. There was the regular picks with guns, you know, those neo-Nazi survivalists from up in the mountains. And one other one, there was the Boy Scouts of America. They were all trying to catch me. And so I'm driving really, really fast, and they're driving quickly behind me, but I'm getting away. I'm a good driver. And then, when you believe it, they throw up a roadblock. Now, has anybody ever been in hot pursuit by the police and had a roadblock thrown up? No, you haven't. No, there are 3 things that you can do in case of a police roadblock. 1, you can give up, but that's silly. 2, you can get off the road, but in my case, I would have just been driving through a cornfield, and they would have gotten me for sure. Number 3 is the best choice because it's the most stupid one. So it's the one they don't expect, which makes it the smart choice. And that's to run the roadblock, which is what I did. And it is exactly like it is in the movies. I'm serious. There are cop cars flying this way and that way, and explosions. And you feel probably the most alive that you have ever felt. You're going fast, you have all this adrenaline going, and then you realize that maybe you're not going to be alive very much longer because you're airborne. That's right, there was a washed out bridge behind the roadblock, and they'd known this, and they figured that I was going to run the roadblock, so they got me. But I had enough speed going that I cleared the river, and I landed on the other side. No harm done, just kind of bounced my head, good suspension in my car that I stole. And the cops, they tried to do the same thing, but they didn't have enough speed, so they kind of piled into the river and dammed it up. Now after this, they kept trying trick after trick to catch me. But do you think I let them slow me down?
Hell no.
No! Because I have a date with the sun, and I never disappoint. No, but once I crossed into Indiana, they were on me thick as yellow jackets on a dead dog. And I knew that I was going to have to stand and give them a fight.
I'd like to read from the testimony of Private John Smith, an American survivor of the defeat at Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1790.
No, you listen to me, because you have to know this story.
I was riding with Major Smith in the Kentucky Cavalry towards Miami towns when we spotted an Indian scout.
Don't ever let anybody tell you that we Indians lost, because I was there when we won.
We spotted an Indian scout, so we gave chase. We'd come a long way to kill Indians, and we weren't going to let any get away.
I spotted the Samantha Army, the whites, just south of the Maumee River, and I let them chase me across.
He turned on his horse and shot one of the regulars in the leg.
I shot one of them from the back of my horse just to get their blood pumping, and then I let them chase me across the Maumee.
We followed him into the river, but once we were halfway across, the opposite bank erupted in a sheet of flame.
I jumped off my horse and sent him off. I dropped flat on my belly and reloaded my gun. But before I could get even my first shot off, the Maumee had already started to fill up with white bodies.
I'd never been shot before. At first, I didn't know it had happened. I just felt a thud on my shoulder and I fell off my horse. I saw my friends falling and their horses falling, and I was embarrassed that I was so clumsy. I guess there must have been blood, but I couldn't see it. I was wet all over anyway from the river. The water was getting all murky from the mud and blood of men and their horses, but then I felt it. It burnt.
I couldn't believe it. The head Samantha had made it all the way across the river, and we always try to take out their leaders first. He pulled out a pair of pistols and he shot Laughing Bear, twice in the face. I rolled on my back and shot him before he had a chance to turn around. He fell over his horse's neck and the animal ran wild.
There were more bodies than water in the river, and the Maumee had turned into a river of blood. My shoulder felt like it was on fire. I crawled towards the south bank and felt a thud in my arse. I lay still, too afraid to move.
The Samantha had stopped coming across in front of us, but some others had crossed to the east. And they rode in on us. I heard the sound of gunshots and I heard the sound of hooves. And I got up and I ran north to Kekianga. I could feel my friends around me, but I didn't stop to look around. I just kept my focus straight ahead on the burnt cornfields and the burnt-out ruins of Kekianga.
The surviving militia shot at the fleeing Indians, and then rode after Willis and McMillan. I yelled at them, could feel the fire behind me now too, but they were too thirsty for Indian blood to hear me. Pretty quick, I was all alone, except for the groans of other wounded men around me.
We ran through the ruins. I've always been a fast runner, so I was a little ways ahead. And I could feel the spit on my cheeks, and my lungs felt like they would explode. But I could hear the sounds of dying and the sound of horses behind me. And I figured I could run maybe just a little bit faster to safety.
At first, I just heard intermittent sounds of shooting and dying across the river. I thought we'd won. Soon the militia and army would be back and they'd take me back to camp. But then I heard an explosion of gunfire and a hellish sound of war whoops.
We were just north of Kekianga when Little Turtle sprung his trap. I wondered when he'd finally do it. He and his warriors ambushed the Samantha army south of Kekianga. When the men behind me heard it, they turned around to go and help their friends. And the Samantha, they holed up in Kekianga, and they were inside shooting out, and we were outside shooting in, but after a while, I guess they'd had enough, because they got out and they ran.
I saw the militia and army come riding back. I yelled, but nobody heard me, or they didn't want to hear me. They were too scared of the Indians. But the Indians must have been pretty whipped too because they didn't haul it after us like I expected. I'm lucky I hid in the reeds though. Because after the militia and army were gone, the Indians spent the afternoon scalping the dead and half dead in the river. It wasn't until dark that I was able to make my way back to camp. My country takes sweet light of liberty, of the land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims from every mountain let free my native country.
Overcast overhead, and I figured since it was a beautiful sunrise, it was going to be a beautiful day. So I sent my kids up into the mountains after strawberries and wild oats or whatever. And while they were gone, it started to snow in the mountains. And I didn't know which trail they'd gone up. So I couldn't go after them. And then when some of them came back, I went up after the others. I found them, and they were froze. And so I came home, and I buried them. And then I sharpened my knives, and in the morning I hiked out to where the sun had been rising. And when I got there, it was dark, so I camped out, figured I'd kill him in the morning. And in the morning, he rose up from the next ridge further off. So I hiked out there. When I got there, he was rising up from the next ridge. And then the next ridge, and then the next ridge, and then there weren't any more ridges. There was just prairies and horizons, and he came up from the next horizon, and the next horizon, and then there was hills, and he came up from behind the next hill, and the next hill. And then we came out onto an island, and I saw him rise up clear and cold and yellow out of the ocean. Kupana kana kana. So I can go get a drink of water. And then I would like it if you guys could stay and tell us about your comments and questions and how you would talk back with us. Yes. All right, so we're just going to take a little break and then we'll come back and talk.
All